Okay, welcome to week 2, gang. So we're going to be working on improving some of the behaviours from last week, as well as adding in some new exercises for you guys to be working on at home. Hi gang, so we're going to go through the leg weave. Now the leg weave is teaching the dog to do a figure of 8 through your legs. Now we're going to start the dog on our left hand side, and we're going to lure the dog's head in from the front and then out and round the back of our second leg to the opposite heel position. And then we're going to repeat the behaviour back, so the dog goes from the right, in from the front, round the back of the left leg and back into the left heel position. So it's a nice little behaviour to start teaching your dogs. Any dog can do this. Sometimes you might think it's going to be harder with your bigger dogs, but actually it can be easier because there's less bending down to do. So it's good for the small dogs as well as the big dogs. So that was luring the leg weave. So we started off luring the leg weave, and I placed my right hand behind my right leg, starting the dog on the left hand side, and I lured the dog's head in from the front and then back into the right heel position, and then again my left hand went behind my left leg and lured the dog's head in from the front and into the left heel position. So next stage is to try and dilute your body language. So trying to get the dog to do it a little bit more by themselves, less help from the treat. So we're going to take the treat out of our hand. We're going to start showing the dog with a hand signal instead. And we're going to try and improve the quality of that hand signal. So the less emphasis I have to give, the better to get the behaviour. Here we go. So that was our leg weave, and what you can see there is I'm starting to dilute my hand signal once the dog's happy. So get your dogs happy first of all, doing the behaviour with food in your hands, getting them to follow the food. Next stage is to take away that food. So the second part of the video you saw me using no food in my hand. I was still rewarding the dog after the behaviour, so that's the important thing. You must still reward the dog after the behaviour. Because you're rewarding the dog doing the behaviour off of your cue, and then we're looking to dilute how much of a cue you have to give the dog. So at the start I'm using my hand target just to get my dog settled in the position because she gets a bit excited, and then I'm looking to show her through my legs with a slight hand signal or a tip of the body, and in the future hopefully we'll be able to send her just off the tip of the head without using our hand. So have a little go. Look forward to seeing your leg weaves. Okay, so we're going to have a little look at last week's exercise, the send around. However, this time we're going to work on sending the dog the opposite direction. Now, there's a couple of important key factors you need to get right when starting to teach this behaviour. Now remember, the dog benefits from seeing the same picture before he starts each first repetition. If he sees the same picture, the behaviour looks the same to him, and then he can improve that behaviour quicker and easier. If you starting the dog in the same position each time, that's going to happen for the dog. So make sure you're starting the dog in the same position. So if you remember from last week, we started the dog on the left hand side and we were sending the dog from left to right back to us. Today we're going to start the dog on the right hand side and we're going to send the dog around the pole back to us from right to left. Now I'm going to start off luring this behaviour and then I'm going to start improving the behaviour a little bit quicker if possible. If we get everything right, the dog should pick it up a bit quicker because he's already learnt the other around. We're going to call it something different, so we're going to verbal cue it. Circle is what I'm going to use. So I use around for left to right and I use circle for right to left. I'm going to use the opposite hand to what I use for sending the dog for around than I do for circle, so that also helps the dog out. So giving the dog as many contextual cues as possible at the start of the behaviour, it helps the dog pick it up. So here we go. Okay, so she got one wrong there out of 5. So for me, I'm still going to push her on. And I'm going to look to increase the difficulty of the behaviour for her now by withdrawing that lure. So I'm going to start trying to put her onto a hand signal. I'm going to start extending the distance and getting in that verbal cue of circle rather than around. So remember, when using your hand signal to send the dog on and build distance in the behaviour, keep that arm up until the dog's gone round, then dropping the arm, bringing the dog in and rewarding the dog back at you. Your marker comes in as the dog bends. So remember, the behaviour to the dog is bending around the object. But yeah, have fun. So next we're going to make it a little bit harder for you, and we're going to add the two together. So we're going to look at building in the send around with the circle, and we're going to do a figure of 8. Okay, so I'm going to put out 2 markers. I'm going to ask my dog to go around one, back to me, and then circle the other one. So we're building in that figure of 8, and then each behaviour will build at the same speed and at the same quality. And also the dog will be able to differentiate the 2 different verbal cues when you're giving them to the dog. So that was a couple of dogs adding the 2 behaviours together there. So we're working on the distance of the behaviour and also the distraction of working with different objects. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys practice. So post up some videos or pictures of your objects you're doing your rounds with. If you've got any questions, post them into the group and we'll answer you straight away. So last exercise for this week is going to be another one, moving on from one of the ones we did last week, and that was our hold behaviour. So we're going to work on this for a little while, and we're going to do a couple of different things with this behaviour. So don't worry if you haven't made it too far yet. Get cracking, choose the right object and start working on your hold, and review last week's video for that part. But hopefully some of you now are being able to offer the dog the object, and when they hold the object, you're being able to take the object back off them and then reinforce them for holding that object for the given period of time, whether it's 3 seconds or 5 or even 10 or even longer if you've gone that far. But one of the benefits of this behaviour is teaching your dog to deliver a toy to hand. So a lot of dogs like retrieving, or even if dogs don't like retrieving, this can help teach them the retrieve. So the dogs that like retrieving, it's normally quite erratic, and they either don't give the ball back or the toy back when they get back to the handler, or they don't deliver it to hand, so they'll throw it at the handler or drop it 5 feet away from the handler. And for aesthetics of what it looks like, and also being able to work easier with your dog, it's just going to be better if the dog can deliver that toy to hand. So the whole behaviour actually teaches the dog to hold the toy and then give it back to you. So what we're now going to do is we're going to look at placing that toy out, and we're going to look at the dog bringing it back to the hold position. And once the dog's done it in one location, we can look to transfer it to different locations. So rather than placing the toy out on the grass, we might place it out on a chair. We might place it out on some sort of object. And we can also transfer it to different items, household items like fetching your keys or fetching the TV remote. Anything that might be handy for you at the minute for your dog to assist you with. So we can have fun with this exercise. Have a little go. If you've mastered the hold, see if you can now throw out the object or place out the object and ask the dog to go out, hold it and bring it back to you, and deliver that toy to hand. When they do, you're going to mark it and reward it, and build it back in. If the dog struggles, we can add movement into the toy. So start off by just throwing the toy out and letting it land, then send the dog before we start placing it out on different objects. Reinforce that behaviour. The behaviour becomes more desirable, and we'll be able to transfer it to other locations more easier. So that's the end of week 2 for the advanced class and the improver guys. These are the exercises we want you to be working on. Get cracking at home, enjoy your training at the minute, and we hope to see you soon.